Welcome to Media Melanie TV. Today I'm back for my first video of 2026, and fittingly, I'm going to be talking about my #1 show from 2025, The Pitt. We are so back, baby. Season 2 is here. We just got episode 1 called 7 a.m. It takes place 10 months after season 1 and is set during 4th of July weekend, which we started to get little hints of with the flags on the trucks, the flags in front of the hospital, and it very much feels like the calm before the storm. Sometimes with second seasons of shows, it can feel like maybe it's lost its luster, or maybe after the big events of season 1, it just doesn't have that same fresh feel. But I think the opposite is actually true here of The Pitt, because we did get to experience this one day in the life of all of these ER workers back in season 1. We really got to know them, and it's crazy because, again, we got to know them over the course of one single day, one single shift, and we're getting that again this season with a full 15 episodes, and it's back within a year's time. In today's media landscape, that is quite a feat. Not to mention, The Pitt won a bunch of Emmys, although notably, Dr. Jack Abbott was not here in episode 1, which makes sense. He didn't come in right away in season 1, and because he did end up winning Best Guest Star in a Drama, they may want to keep his episode count low so that way he can still be in contention for season 2. That said, I would love to see some Jack Abbott on my screen. I think Sean Hattasy is just wonderful. And I've just got to say, I do think Taylor Dearden should have gotten at least a look for supporting actress. But hey, I mean, I guess it's nice that Catherine Lanassa did get it for Nurse Dana. Nurse Dana is also back. She took some time off. I'm really glad that she is returning. She was definitely one of my favorite characters in season 1. She gives no Fs whatsoever, and she really is the backbone of this entire ER. But Dr. Collins is not here. They made it so she finished her residency, and basically her story is complete. I think there's definitely going to be a void felt there, but because we do have some new characters entering and the familiarity of a lot of this cast from season 1, I think we're going to be okay. But I do just want to say I loved her character, and I am kind of disappointed that she's not here with us anymore. And with the characters that we do know, I feel like a lot of these small moments feel a lot more earned because we are comfortable with all of these people. A couple of examples of that: when McKay was telling Mohan how she basically wanted to get laid, and she's like, oh, is this too much for 8 a.m.? And Mohan's like, yeah, too much for anytime. And prior to that, McKay gave Mohan this look like, what are you talking about? As she's discussing how she took this other position in New Jersey to be closer to her mom, but now her mom is getting married and she's going on a year-long cruise, and what if she disappears at sea, etc., etc. But just the interactions and dynamics between this cast, it feels so natural to me. I also kind of liked that we didn't quite get that same kick in the pants graphicness that we got in the first episode of season 1, because I was a little bit squeamish back in season 1, episode 1, and now that I know what to expect, it's fine. Yeah, the lung twisting was a little bit much, but I mean, a lot of medical professionals have been out there saying that this is the best represented medical show out there. You know, actually, one of the most graphic scenes was something that wasn't even necessarily graphic. The poor unhoused man who's in the ER, everybody's complaining about him, the smell, the funk, etc. Just watching him shower and scrub all of that nasty dirt off his body. I mean, I could almost smell him through the screen. And unfortunately, homelessness is a big issue. I live here in Southern California in San Diego. I work at Petco Park, home of the Padres. And let me tell you, when I walk from my car, from the parking garage to the stadium, it is unfortunate how many people are in the same situation, walking by, the smell. It is terrible. Our country needs to really work on mental health. Seeing the storyline woven in, I think, is going to be a strong cultural commentary on this very topic. All right, before I get more into my review of episode 1, 7 a.m., please be sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'm going to be here reviewing The Pitt season 1 every week, all 15 episodes. And then starting next week, I'm also going to be covering Tell Me Lies season 3. Going to be doing a few videos a week on that. January 28th, School Spirits season 3, a supernatural teen drama. I'm so excited for the year in television for 2026 in general, and I do hope that you'll stick with me. Be sure to follow me over on Instagram at mediamelanie. I'm doing a Friday live stream weekend watch every week, and I would love for you to join me there as well. And I'm also hoping to do more live streams here at the channel in 2026. And just a big thank you and Happy New Year to everybody who's been along here for the ride. All right, let's get back into episode 1. Let's talk about the pacing a little bit. Now, maybe it felt a little bit slow, but because we are familiar with this format and because things really do ramp up towards the end of the season, like with Pitt Fest not coming until halfway through the season, we can obviously expect things are going to get pretty crazy in here for July 4th. I mean, I'm thinking fireworks, like limbs lost. There's all kinds of problems that can come about. But I actually think the time jump helps with the pacing because they are setting the table for some of these storylines and catching us up on where some of these characters have been. Like Langdon, he's obviously been in a rehabilitation program. Now, question, do we forgive Langdon? I loved how Dr. Robby was basically trying to ignore him. Langdon eventually caught up to him, asked about the sabbatical, and Robby really doesn't want to talk about it. Langdon's like, are you having a stroke? Why are you just like saying these random words to me? So I think things are going to be obviously a little bit tense between Langdon and Robby, but let's talk about Robby for a second too. Now, this was something that was in the conversation when the trailer came out. Okay, Robby was driving into the hospital, riding a motorcycle with no helmet. Are you even kidding me? And I'm going to get more into this later with some of the themes we see here in the episode and how they might move through this second season. But I'm thinking because we have a bicyclist who was told, oh, you should be wearing your helmet, I think there's going to end up being a big payoff. And it makes me wonder, will Robby maybe get in some kind of accident leaving the hospital? And then that could prevent him from going on this 3-month sabbatical. That would be quite the cliffhanger. And because the show does time jumps, they could definitely do that. Obviously, the accident won't be severe enough to take Robby out because Noah Wyle is very much the star of the show, but they could make it where, you know, he's healing for the next 10 months. And then let's say his shift coming back for season 3 is Robby's first day back after a break, but not the sabbatical break, a potential motorcycle accident break. Otherwise, why would they have the whole helmet thing? Why would he not be wearing a helmet? I mean, I think they want us to call this out, right? Let me tell you, my children will always be wearing a helmet as long as they're under my roof and hopefully when they're older on their regular bicycles. And you know what? Don't even get me started on e-bikes. That is a whole nother conversation. Speaking of McKay, I mentioned her, but I didn't mention her bangs. She seems to be growing them out. They're a little bit more off to the side, not as blunt of a bang cut as we saw in season 1. Another returning face this season, my girl, Dr. Mel King. I just think there's something about Taylor Dearden that she really brings to this role of Dr. Mel King. And if you didn't know, she is also Bryan Cranston's daughter, which I did not realize until like halfway through season 1. And then now looking at her, I can't unthink about Bryan Cranston. But this actress stands on her own 2 feet as herself. There is like not a Nepo baby term in sight for her because she is so good. And I think that's going to continue here in season 2 as long as they can strike a good balance of quirkiness and professionalism. I love her quirkiness. I think her character is great, but could they be leaning a little too much into the quirkiness this season? I don't know. I mean, she came out of the gates really swinging. When one of the doctors was talking to her and then they called her name and she's like, I didn't say anything because she was very distracted. The way she reacted when Langdon came back, oh my God, she was basically like pawing him like a little puppy dog. But then we actually learned that she's got a deposition. Now, is this going to somehow derail Mel's career? That would be absolutely tragic. And Santos is basically like, you know what? Like, you're a resident. The hospital has to cover it. You're going to be fine. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried here for our girl. She is very clearly distracted. So distracted, in fact, that she doesn't even notice the cute guy hitting on her, asking, do you like coffee? And then when he says, do you like boba? And she's like, I love boba. Oh my gosh, like, please go on a date with this guy, please. And speaking of Santos, she has not changed one bit. I do not like her. I did not like her character at all last season. I think she was slightly redeemed in the last couple of episodes. And I use the word slightly a little bit loosely because I just don't like her. That said, the actress who plays her is great because she makes us not want to like her. I thought it was really funny when Javadi's mom came down and apparently Santos is trying to get the surgical position, but she's also talking about getting double board certified. And basically she's coming across having quite the ego. And I like that Javadi called her out. She's like, yeah, you definitely have the right attitude for doing both of those things. But I guess I've got to give it to Santos. She's got the confidence and I think that serves her well sometimes, but then other times maybe not so much. One of the bigger themes of this episode, though, is obviously Robby going on his sabbatical and the fact that there's going to be a new attending. The office politics and power play trope is in full effect. It's very clear that Robby and Dr. Al have different management styles. I loved that Dr. Robby said, is the VA even a trauma center? He very clearly has his doubts, and I am wondering if there's going to be something that prevents him from going on the sabbatical, whether that is the accident I mentioned before, or maybe he's not comfortable leaving her in charge. She's very much a yes woman. She's obviously trying to get on Gloria's good side. She's implementing these patient passports, probably a little bit too much too quickly. I mean, she shows up early with the whole spread of bagels. She's obviously trying to earn the respect of everybody. And then I think it was Dr. Shen who said, oh yeah, Giant Balls of Disrespect. That was the name of my high school band. I love the whole high school band banter thing. Like I said, I work for the Padres. And one of the shticks between our two announcers, Don Orsillo and Mark Grant, is when anything weird is said, Mudd will be like, oh, that's the name of my new band. I think that's really funny. So maybe throughout the season, if I pick up on any, I'll throw out a couple of, oh, that's the name of my new band. Another storyline we had here was the abandoned baby, which really just crushes me every time. But they presented a little bit of a mystery here. Why is Dr. Al having this reaction looking down at the baby? Did she recently have some kind of personal experience? Did she maybe lose a baby? Did she miscarry? We know a few things about her. She's pretty, she's divorced, and she's got one child. It also seems like she's a real rule follower, and she's also a clinical informatics expert. So maybe she's very into AI. Obviously, it's her job here to come in, streamline things. She doesn't want it to be called the Pitt anymore. She's got the patient passports. And Dr. Robby's basically like, hey, it would have been nice if you maybe, I don't know, came in sooner. We could have talked about this. I could show you how things work. Their modes of management are very different. And obviously, this is going to be a big point of contention through the season. One of our new characters, Emma Nolan, is an RN who's shadowing Dana. I think we're in for a treat with her. We didn't get to see a lot from her, but she's young, she's eager, and she's getting thrown right into it with the whole unhoused situation man in the shower. Something I noticed, though, there were quite a few ongoing themes or maybe planting of seeds that could end up coming back into play later. Now, one of them is sound, the phone. I don't know about you, but it was actually driving me crazy when Mohan's phone was going off when they were treating that patient. Every time it came up, I was also like, hey Siri, please put it on silent mode. And also, obviously my Siri fired up during that, and I'm sure yours might have as well. I think that's always pretty funny when Siri just starts talking randomly out of nowhere. With the phone, we then had Whitaker later on asking to put the phones on silent so they could take a moment to honor the man from assisted living that they lost who did not have the DNR. At that moment, too, Robby walked in, saw what Whitaker was doing, and then respectfully left and closed the door. I think he was happy with what he saw there. But then concurrently, we've also got the woman sitting in the waiting room who is hearing impaired. When it went silent, I'm looking around, I'm like, oh my gosh, is there something like going on with the sound here? Is it not working? It was a very strong way to both visually and audibly represent that this woman can't hear. I assume that she's the woman Harlow they're calling for her over the loudspeaker. So is this going to be an ongoing thing where they just keep calling her name and she keeps sitting there until something terrible happens and they actually figure out that she can't hear them? But with two separate phone subplots and then a woman who can't hear, something about sound just triggered my, I think something's going on here. I mentioned the helmet situation earlier with Robby not wearing one and then them telling the bicyclist that he should be wearing one. Again, I'm a little bit worried for Robby. Hopefully that doesn't mean that he will actually get into a motorcycle accident. I'm not channeling that for anybody, especially our beloved Dr. Robby, but I think this feels a little bit intentional. We've also got some religion in the mix. Not only do we have a nun, but we also had the hypochondriac B12 woman. And I actually thought it was really kind of cute and caring how they placated her, making it sound very serious, like, they're going to give her what she needs. And it's really just a dose of B12. Because they call her Hail Mary, and then we've got this nun named Grace, religion seems like it's going to be a subplot. And then we also had Javadi treating the nun, and she says, oh, have you ever thought about serving God? And Javadi's like, which one? Because obviously in her religion there are multiple gods, and the nun's like, oh, there's only one. So I'm wondering, is this going to turn into a thing where the nun is treating Javadi in a disrespectful way because she doesn't necessarily believe in other religions? I mean, here's the thing, if you're a nun, if you're a person of God, shouldn't we be accepting like just everybody for people? I personally take life with a humanistic approach, which means treat people the way you want to be treated. Being that we have two separate cases here with religion and then it being brought up to Javadi and her faith being questioned, I don't know how it's going to all come around, but it seems like it will definitely be something. The story that's really getting me right now, though, is 9-year-old Kylie, who fell down the stairs, and she's got a bunch of injuries, some prior bruising. She's broken her wrist. She's been to other ERs, and it is her boy. And it's her dad's girlfriend who's in the ER with her. Now, she says she's only been dating him for a few months, and I assume that's probably true, unless there is a more nefarious storyline at play here, where maybe she has been dating him longer and she's somehow involved with it. Or perhaps she is also the victim of abuse. Or that's a big red herring, and there's somebody completely different, not on our radar yet, who unfortunately is doing these terrible things to Kylie. Could there be a medical explanation for it that's causing all of these injuries and the bruising? Possibly, but it does seem like they're going down a certain road right now. I hate watching cases of children not being treated well. I think cases like this, cases with abandoned babies, anything having to do with kids just really tears at my heartstrings. So I'm hoping that it's not going to be some just terrible, terrible reveal, but just given the nature of the show, I think that that's definitely on the table. But because we have Kylie and a baby, there's definitely a theme of children here as well. Then a story we had from last season, we had the child who OD'd on his parents' edibles. And now here we have 2 instances of self-medicating, actually technically 3 if we're talking about Louis and self-medicating with alcohol. We've got leg cramp guy with all of his supplements and homeopathic treatments. And then we've got the woman who is eating like a dozen cannabis cookies per day. Are you even kidding me? Obviously, that is what is causing her stomach distress. But because the show does lean so heavily into political commentary, discussing current events like, last season just using measles as an example, and now them bringing back something with cannabis again, obviously it seems like there is this self-medicating theme, so I'm interested to see where that goes as well. But overall, really quick, I'm just going to go over some of the cases that we saw, because now that we know the format of the show, and because this is just one shift, it's highly likely we're going to be visiting all of these cases throughout the 15 episodes of the season. Yes, some of them are in and out. And I think something that's interesting too, just about the nature of being an ER doctor, is you don't get to see what happens to these people most of the time once they leave. You treat them, they go. You don't really ever get to follow up unless, of course, they're coming back for a specific follow-up or something. They could be there for 12 hours, they could be there for a few days, whatever it is. But I think it's just so interesting that they don't get to see what happens on the other end once they are done treating them. We've got a John Doe with a penetrating trauma from a dishwasher knife stab wound. I mentioned Kylie, and Dr. Santos is treating her, obviously orders a social work consult, and she does confer with both Robby and Dr. Al, because Dr. Al is now kind of shadowing Robby a little bit to see how things are working. It's funny because Santos mentions, we'll see if this is a reportable event, but it kind of ties back to last season, how she had the case with the dad who fell off the ladder and the mouthful that she gave that guy and the drama that all of that turned into when she was trying to insert herself into that situation, right or wrong. Liam Sanders, 26, he was the bicycle accident, the guy not wearing the helmet, and the one who's hitting on Dr. Mel King. I do think they'd make a cute couple. The way he opened with, "I like the color of your hair," very cute. We've got Candace O'Grady. She's 82. Her son Richard brought her in with some vomiting. She sends Richard off to get some tea because obviously he's like a little overdoing it here, but he's there with his mom trying to protect her, so I get it. Then there's Mr. Williams, who's got the wrist injury, but obviously he must have hit his head because he's having some memory impairment, and McKay is very much trying to advocate for him to stay there so she can at least get the x-ray and put the wrist in a splint if needed. But there's also obviously something neurological going on, and now his knee is hurting. So it's good that she's able to convince him to stay, but something seems off about him. The way he said something like, "I'm not here to be profiled." What does that mean? Is this man involved in something he shouldn't be? I don't know exactly what it is, but my gut was saying, okay, there is definitely something up with this guy, and I don't think it's good. We had Ethan, 79. That was the guy who came in from assisted living without the DNR. But the real kicker is that his wife ends up coming in the ambulance later. And Ogilvy, who's one of the new residents that Whitaker is sort of training, when they're in there, he said something like, with the elderly, it could also be like X, Y, and Z. Is it possible that maybe they overlooked some other cause that could be contributing to what was going on with him? And maybe something similar is going on with the wife. It's going to be heartbreaking once they have to tell her that her husband is no longer with them. There's Sister Grace, who's got what looks to be a really bad case of conjunctivitis, but something about the way that Javadi was looking at the scan from the eye or the photo of the eye makes me think that it's probably a bigger problem. And by the way, I should say, I have a PhD in Googology. I myself am quite a hypochondriac, and I will tell you, while I don't have a medical degree, I Google the crap out of everything. So when someone in my life or a friend, family, whatever is sick or has some ailment, immediately I go right to my diagnosis, Dr. Google, obviously, which they went into last season and how that can be actually very harmful. So I'm trying to do a lot less of that in general. I mean, we need to leave it to the doctors, right? That's why Langdon is in triage right now, so he can put his skills to good use, even though he feels like he's being punished. And then Robby lets Dr. Mel King stay in the back, so not great for Langdon, but he's gonna have to get over it. He put himself in this position. And speaking of that, he's also treating Louis, who came in with what looks like a terrible tooth abscess or infection. He's got the fluid in his belly. I was actually pretty surprised to hear that Langdon owned up to him about stealing his medication. I mean, he seemed pretty forgiving about it once it kind of sank in a little bit, and he says, I hope that they helped you. I am just wondering if Langdon is actually going to be able to stay off of the benzos. I mentioned Harlow, who I believe is the hearing impaired woman who is waiting out in the lobby. Mr. Digby is the funky unhoused man taking the shower. I don't know exactly what his ailment is, but maybe he's just there to get a hot shower. I mean, he says, gosh, I could spend hours here. Langdon treated an ankle sprain. There was another ambulance arrival with a dislocated arm, and seeing the close-up of the bone sticking out, I mean, it wasn't like super graphic, but it was definitely like a little cringy moment for me. And because we didn't get like a whole lot of graphic stuff here, I'm wondering if they are going to ease us into it. Are we going to get hit harder with it? Either way, I think it is something the show does well, even if it is hard to watch sometimes because it feels authentic. Never forget the childbirth from season 1. The abandoned baby obviously came into play. They found them in the restroom and they're calling over the loudspeaker, did anybody leave their baby? I mean, come on, obviously whoever left them there is no longer at the hospital unless it turns into some crazy situation where, I don't know, something happened to the parent and they're unconscious somewhere. I doubt it. But I also wonder if we're ever going to see who the parent is, because in season 1, we never got to see who the shooter at Pitt Fest was. So is it going to be a similar thing where the baby gets sent out with social workers or something and reunited with the family, but we don't ever get to actually see who left this baby there? So I did actually go back to the beginning of the episode to see if I could maybe clock a baby in the background somewhere in the waiting room lobby, and I didn't see one. So maybe we haven't seen the person who dropped it off, and maybe we never will. Evelyn, 81, is the older woman who arrives by ambulance, and she's got Alzheimer's. And again, she is the wife of Ethan, who came in earlier, who unfortunately passed away. So for both of them to be coming in at the same time, it makes me think, could they have maybe ingested something that caused the husband's death? And even though he had a DNR, if it was something that was actually a causal thing versus just giving CPR for unknown reasons, does that differentiate with a patient's wishes? Overall, though, I really don't have any nitpicks for this first episode. I've been so excited for this, and it really didn't disappoint me at all. I like how we have the formula. We have each episode being the 1-hour shift. I like how there's also an ongoing subplot with Dr. Robby going on a sabbatical, and then this whole power struggle between him and Dr. Al. If I'm guessing, I feel like even though it seems like right now Robby is very frustrated with her for coming in and implementing all these changes, I think we'll end up maybe in a middle ground spot, or at least it's possible, right? Where Robby gives in a little bit and realizes, what, some of these things might actually be good for us. And then on the other side of it, Dr. Al maybe being a little bit more flexible, less rigid, and learning from Robby how things do operate. So they could maybe come up with sort of a happy medium type of way to operate this. So that way when Robby does return from his sabbatical, if he ends up going, it'll be a smooth transition. And I assume that means she's staying. I don't know if that means she's going back to the VA. I assume not. And it's really funny because this actress looks so familiar to me. And I looked up her IMDb and I've literally never watched any of the shows she's in. Maybe she just has one of those faces, but I don't know. I swear I could place her in some show that is not on her IMDb, but I don't know, I guess maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. There were a couple of needle drops in this episode too. The opening song, Better Off Without You by the Clarks, as Dr. Robby is driving in. And Better Off Without You is kind of an interesting thing because it obviously plays into the fact that Robby's going to be leaving, going off on sabbatical. I don't think anybody is better off without Dr. Robby, but it's an interesting song choice. Say Yeah Yeah by Yvonne Fair is the song that closes out the episode. And this one really flew by. I think they did a wonderful job setting the table, presenting the cases that we're going to be seeing throughout the season and how they end up linking together. And obviously, because it is the 4th of July, we're going to be seeing some kind of traumatic injuries, probably regarding fireworks, explosives, drownings. I mean, there are endless amounts of things that can go wrong on the 4th of July. What I'm really curious about is if they're going to get into any political commentary about it. That is to be determined. There was also a quick moment where Robby made a phone call to this guy, Duke, who apparently is a motorcycle engineer. He needs to come in for his test before Robby ends up leaving. So I'm not sure exactly what Duke's storyline is going to be, but obviously it's got to be related to motorcycles, and we know Robby rides motorcycles. So what is it? And then I should also mention, obviously, there's a lot of other characters here that are returning who I did not mention. We've got Perla, we've got Princess, we've got Dr. Garcia, Lupe, Joy, who is another new character who's been alongside Ogilvy under Whitaker. There's Dr. Ellis, medical assistant John. So lots of characters who we're probably going to see more of. And it's nice that most of these people are returning, but also nice that there are some new faces here as well. Although I'm still not thrilled about Dr. Collins not being here. Hopefully she's going to land a role on some other show so I can watch her there because she was fantastic. And I also wish we just had more of her in season 1. We haven't seen Gloria Underwood yet. And actually, did we see Mateo? I don't think we saw Nurse Mateo yet. And then Kira Alfaro, who is the social worker, who I imagine is going to be coming in to consult on Kylie's case. Okay, what did you guys think about this episode? Lay it on me down in the comments. What were your highs? What were your lows? What are you looking forward to? Did you pick up on any little seeds being planted or potential ideas on where some of these storylines could go or how they might connect? Definitely let me know. I could not be more excited for this season of television. I think they're doing such great things. Again, being able to come back in a year, land 15 episodes, and have them so well done that you're up for Emmy contention. Let's go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. And I'm going to be back again soon with more TV talk. Media Melanie, clicking off.